that it's a little late, but I appreciate everyone tuning in. Hope everyone's doing well. Wes Pruitt, 4 Star Sports Media. You are sitting down at the Tigers Den right now. Like I said, appreciate everybody tuning in and watching the show. Apologize, it's a little late. Like I said, just had some scheduling conflicts that made it have to be this late. So, Tigers Den, where we talk all things Memphis Tigers, as you can see on the screen. Couple of little graphics there. Memphis football won 10 games in 2023. It's fourth time in program history with 10 wins. And Memphis will kick off 2024 on August 31st against North Alabama on ESPN Plus. Tonight, we're going to get into a lot of all things Memphis Tigers as always. But welcome to the show. Tigers Trivia has just kicked off. And let me just hit this jingle for you. I know you got to have the jingle, right? Here we go. All right, guys. Tigers Trivia, as we get this show started tonight. Appreciate everybody watching and listening over on our social media pages at Facebook, YouTube, and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. All right, trivia questions on the screen for those of you watching. For those of you listening, it is: how many 1,000-yard receivers does Memphis have in program history? Anyone that's watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to chime in. They have not integrated StreamYard yet with X comments. So we will give this answer at the end of the show, as always. But how many 1,000-yard receivers does the University of Memphis have in program history? I'll let you think on that while I hit this little jingle again. All right, you can see there on the screen, talking ladies soccer. Memphis women's soccer kicks off the 2024-2025 athletic calendar for the University of Memphis. For those of you that didn't know, this is the very beginning of the 2024-2025 calendar for athletics. So Memphis has 2 exhibition games. Had one last night against Vanderbilt. Also has one on the 10th against Auburn. When you look at the history between Memphis and Auburn, it is 0-1. Auburn won the only game 3-0 in the first game of the Rebel Classic back in 2014. And just like very common, you look at 2024 and look at 2014, Memphis in the Rebels Classic in 2014 took on the Vanderbilt Commodores just the game prior to Auburn. So very funny that we play them again. But at the time, Brooks Monaghan would say that's the game of soccer. Fair enough. We gave up the first goal. You're never happy, but I thought we recovered well. The problem is that they scored off of a mistake. How they scored, we have talked about preventing it. It was off a set piece. It never makes you happy. When you address your team, they lose a little focus, and then they get scored on. Quote, that was a tough one, but we didn't put our heads down, and we continued to play. We got some momentum back. So Memphis will take on Auburn. Lady Tigers will take on Auburn in women's soccer on the 10th. And looking forward to another fun season with the Brooks Monaghan, who enters his 25th season at the helm of the Memphis women's soccer team. And I mean, when you look at Memphis women's soccer coming off second straight NCAA Sweet 16 appearances, first team in the American Athletic Conference history to have a perfect conference record. When you look at Brooks Monaghan, he would say this, talking about this year's team. Brooks Monaghan would say, quote, we have always had a high standard here, but in the last couple of years, we've raised the bar. He would say, in addition, quote, when you raise the bar, you've got a bigger target on your back. Every year is a new team, and seeing the team in training has got me optimistic. We talked to Monaghan last year, and we're working to get him back on. We talked to Monaghan last year, right before the Ole Miss game. So it's fairly early in the season, um, and I mean it's it. He talked about the schedule. He talked about setting up, top talent. And when you look at Memphis, I mean, you had the exhibition game last night against Vanderbilt. You got another one on the 10th, like I said, against Auburn. But then you turn around and you go on the road to Ole Miss, to Missouri. You go to Missouri first, August 18th. Ole Miss is August 25th. And then you turn around and go to Tennessee on September 12th. So when you look at this soccer team on the road, Memphis has got to make a very tough road trip. But the other thing about this team is Memphis makes it a very hard road trip to come to Memphis. And to further that point, when you look at Memphis at Billy J. Murphy Track and Soccer Complex, of course, as we know, they previously played at Mike Rose. But they officially moved games over there starting in 2019. Since that point, Memphis has accumulated a record of 42-3. That is 40 wins, 2 losses, 3 ties, which is roughly a 92% win rate. And they're currently amid a 17-game unbeaten run in home dates, in home games, and that dates back to 2021. So when you look at Memphis, 9-0 last year at home, including wins over Ole Miss, Ohio State, and SMU en route to their conference championship. This year they host Iowa State on September 1st, turn right back around and host Kansas State right after it. And then they also open up conference play but their home opener of the season. It's on Alabama A&M. And that's 6 p.m. And then they'll also host UT Martin on the 15th of September. So when you look at it, I mean, this team's defensively absolutely incredible. Kaylee Bierman will be back in goal. She was the 2023 American Athletic Conference Goalkeeper of the Year in her first season. And along with her, and you got other folks too. You got Sarah Hagg, Finley Lavin, Momo Nikau, and Valerie Sato. I mean, when you look at those 5 players right there, 4 players. I'm sorry, 5 players. When you look at those 5 players, that's 162 games played for Memphis in soccer. That's a lot of soccer games. But you take that mixed with extreme talent from Memphis. I mean, really, when you look at Memphis, you've got Ann Hauer and Ashley Henderson, 2 members of last year's freshman class. But I mean, you look at Lavin too. She was a freshman as well, but they played big time roles last year in the team. And really, when you look at their production, I mean, Hauer she finished 3rd on the team with 8 goals, and she was named to the AAC All Conference second team. And then Lavin was named to the All Rookie team. So when you look at them, I mean, those 2 players alone played really well. But then you look at Ashley Henderson, a Memphis native. She played over 425 minutes in attack during her freshman season. That's a lot, folks. That's a lot of soccer. But then you turn around and Henderson would come back with that, finish ranked 5th on the team with 4 goals, including a big goal over Notre Dame, which is a left-footed strike to the top corner that sealed their spot into the Sweet 16 last year. So, man, you look at this team, they're loaded, they're talented. In the last 6 years, Memphis records 87, 23, and 8. Of those 87 wins, Memphis scored first in 79 of them, including 63 times in the first half. So when you look at this Memphis soccer team, they pride themselves on really a stout defense, especially in the middle. But then you take that defense and you turn it into offense, and that is a prolific offense, and they score mightily against everyone they play. It doesn't matter who they play. If they can score first, they got a pretty good chance of beating you. Monaghan would say it's something important that we've instilled in our girls to bring energy from the first whistle and set the tone early. And then he would go on to say, when we do that, we're proven to be very successful. And Monaghan's 100% right. When you look at the success of this women's soccer team, it's been incredible. Like I just said, In the last 6 seasons, this team is 87, 23, and 8. And as I just said, of those 87 wins, they've scored first in 79 of them. So the ability to score first incredibly fast and at a prolific pace, and then turn around and you've got stout defense. I mean, that's what this team's done. That's what this team's done for quite some time. But man, yeah, a lot of fun. Is that Memphis women's soccer team. When you take a look at them, when you go watch them, like I said, they got Auburn on the 10th. Then they get into the regular season as they host Alabama A&M to start the season. But we're going to move over to football next. But before we do that, I'm going to take a quick break. It shouldn't take long. Take roughly 60 seconds or so. But we appreciate everybody watching and listening. You are watching the Tigers Den right here on the 4-Star Sports Media Network. Welcome back, folks, to the Tigers Den right here on the 4-Star Sports Media Network. We appreciate everybody watching and listening. And also want to give a quick shout out to all of our folks on Twitter. Our Twitter recently has been taken off. We appreciate all the support for all the work we do. We put a lot of work in here, not only covering the Memphis Tigers, but covering Arkansas Razorbacks, Arkansas Hockey Club, as you've seen articles and more on our website. Head over to 4star.live. That's where you can find all of our content consolidated into one website. That's all of our podcasts, all of our articles. Speaking of Memphis football, I've got numerous articles out right now. I think I sat down yesterday and put out like 4 or 5, 6 articles. Plenty of stuff to get out there and read. We love giving you guys the content. We love sitting down and writing the articles, working on the graphics. You see the picture right there on our logo for the top, for our new logo for the Tigers Den. That photo was taken by Madison Pinckey to 4-Star Sports Maddie is. If you don't know who she is, find out who she is. Go find her. She's redheaded. She's going to be on the sidelines for Tiger football again this year. She takes incredible photos. She's a hard worker. Her, Kayla Hoyle, John Sturdivant does an incredible job. Blake and Ashton, who will be on tomorrow night, talking to Arkansas Razorbacks too on our Hogs Happy Hour. Those guys do an incredible job. Then we got the buffet Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we've got a little bit of everything here at 4-Star Sports Media. We don't put all of our eggs in one basket per se. We talk a little bit of all. We're a multimedia network, and that's the whole point. But tonight, Wednesday night, we're specifically talking Memphis Tigers. You can see, for those of you watching, you can see right there on the screen, it says awards galore for Memphis. So we talked a little bit about Seth Hennigan, and we're going to talk about him some more. But today, it was announced that a pair of Memphis Tigers was named to the preseason Bolitnikoff Award watch list. We would see wide receivers Rock Taylor and Demir Buklumsky each named the 2024 Bolitnikoff Award watch list. So the Tallahassee Quarterback Club Foundation would announce. So as you know, if you don't know, we'll explain it to you. The Bolitnikoff Award annually recognizes college football's season's outstanding FBS receiver. Any player, regardless of position, whether that's wide receiver, tight end, slot back, and running back, who catches a pass is eligible for the award. As such, the Blitnikoff Award recognizes college football's outstanding receiver. So 2 Tigers were named to it today. So it is the outstanding receiver, not merely college football's outstanding wide receiver. So very important to separate the two. But Rock Taylor, a senior out of Oxford, Alabama, led the Tigers last year in 2023 with 69 receptions, 1,083 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He ranked 20th in the NCAA in receiving yards and 23rd in the nation in receiving yards per game, while just having an incredible season last year for the Memphis Tigers. And when you look at this year at this offense, he is target number 1 for quarterback Seth Hennigan. The 2023 second team All-ACC honoree, Taylor was one of just 9 Tigers to start all 13 games on the 10-win season last year. He would also go over 100 yards receiving 6 times. He was named preseason first team All-ACC or All-AAC by Phil Steele and picked the Americans preseason wide receiver of the year by College Football Network earlier this week. We'll get to that here shortly. He nearly went over, the next wide receiver, Demir Bakumzi, nearly went over the 1,000-yard mark himself. He hauled in 53 passes for 901 yards and was a team's best 7 touchdowns. The Cincinnati, Ohio native ranked 8th in the conference in receiving yards per game with 69.3 last season to earn Phil Steele's third-team All-AAC honors. The redshirt senior started 11 games. It appeared in all 13 for the Tigers last year, and he logged a trio of 100-yard games, and he was nabbed by the second team All-AAC by Phil Steele. But the semifinalist and finalist and award recipient are all selected by the highly distinguished Blitnikoff Award National Selection Committee, a group of 600 prominent college football journalists, commentators, announcers, and more. We here at 4-Star Sports Media vote for two or three of these awards. So always fun to get our votes in every year, and to follow college football from a national landscape. And as well, we're also going to be doing a top 25 vote this year, and we're also going to be doing some power polls, things like that, with us here at 4-Star Sports Media. But we would also see another Tiger named, that's Mario Anderson Jr., as he was named to the 2024 Doak Walker Award list. The forum will annually present the award to the nation's most outstanding college running back. He was named second team preseason All-AAC by Phil Steele after he would lead South Carolina last year in rushing with 707 yards, 3 touchdowns on 143 carries. Anderson Jr. would also haul in 22 receptions for 153 yards and a score as a receiver out of the backfield. So when you look at Antonio Anderson, we've got an article out on this exact thing right now at 4star.live. We talk about the way that he is a dual threat running back. He can bust you on the offensive line and bust one and take it to the house, but he can also come out of the backfield, not only pass block, because you have to pass block in this Memphis offense. If you don't pass block in this offense, you're not going to play, just period. But Anderson Jr. does an incredible job in the pass blocking, as well as he can definitely run routes and make catches and play just really dangerous, honestly. But the PwC SMU Athletic Forum, which is the people that give the award away, board of directors will name 10 semifinalists in November, and 3 finalists, as voted on by the Doak Walker Award National Selection Committee, will be announced in November. The committee will cast a second vote in December to determine the final recipient. The National Selection Committee consists of past recipients, former NFL All-Pro and college All-American running backs, media members such as us, and selected special representatives. The recipient of the 2024 Doak Walker Award will be announced live at the 2024 Home Depot College Football Awards on December 12th. So we would talk about earlier how we would see Rock Taylor bring in the award from the CFN, which is the College Football Network. So Memphis was all over it. So the CFN was named. The Tigers were highlighted with the CFN naming AAC Coach of the Year to Ryan Silverfield, AAC Quarterback, Offensive Player of the Year, and honorable mention All-American Seth Hennigan. The CFN preseason All AAC Wide Receiver of the Year Rock Taylor. The CFN AAC Guard of the Year Xavier Hill. The College Football Player AAC Kick Returner of the Year and Sutton Smith, and the entire offensive line being nabbed as Offensive Line of the Year. So entering his 9th season, Silverfield has been named preseason Coach of the Year. He has won a bowl in each of his first 4 seasons and is the only head coach in Memphis program history with 4 wins after leading Memphis to a victory over Iowa State last year in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. In addition, and you've heard us talk about this before, but his 31 wins are tied for second most by any Memphis coach through 4 seasons. And as we've also talked about in detail, he ranks 4th among head coaches who were hired in 2020. You go back and look at the head coaches who were hired in 2020. It's pretty impressive to see what Ryan Silverfield's done at Memphis, and that's not a homer statement. That's a just blatant, obvious statement. But obviously the offense starts and stops with the quarterback, Seth Hennigan. He is the youngest. He's the only quarterback 4-year starter in the nation to start all 4 years at the same institution. He's the only quarterback in the nation to do that. That speaks to what Ryan Silverfield entering his 9th year. His fifth as head coach. He was on the staff obviously previously. But when you look at this offense, it starts and stops with Seth Hennigan. The senior quarterback had his best year last year in 2023, threw for 3,883 yards, 32 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions on the year. He would also rush for another 5 scores and set the single season completion record, which he had 318 for Memphis last year. So he enters the 2024 season the career leader in the following: completions with 839, passing yards with 10,776, while his 79 touchdowns are just a dozen shy of Brady White's career record. And the senior has logged 18 career 300 games and 5 400-yard games over his career, both his program records. And if Seth Hennigan throws for if he throws for the on average what he's thrown for every year, which is around 3,400 yards, he will finish at Memphis as he'll be in the top. I think he'll be in the top 20 for all-time passing yards as a quarterback in college football. Seth Hennigan will be drafted. Someone will take Seth Hennigan. I have no doubt about that in my mind. That, once again, that's not a homer statement. That's factual. We talked about Rock Taylor. Rock Taylor was an incredible player. Now let's jump over to a guy that we talked to him when he first signed with Memphis, and that's Sutton Smith, young man out of Georgia, but did an amazing job. He averaged 24.3 yards per return last year, which ranked him 18th nationally and 2nd in the American. And he also, like I said, he adds kick returner of the year. But the running back totaled 77 yards and a touchdown on 4 rushes. And a touchdown on 4 rushes and a pair of touchdowns in the Liberty Bowl in a incredible football game. And that little shimmy shake move he did, where he just kind of split those two defenders, was absolutely incredible. When you look at this Memphis offensive line, I mean, obviously Xavier Hill is going to be a big part of that. But I mean, you look at Jonah Gamble, you look at Kadriel Lewis, you look at Michael Glidholz, but then you look at Trent Holler, who you bring in from Marshall, Jalen Nichols, who people have talked about him, but he's a guy that's going to be absolutely incredible. Yes, the 39 points a game which was sixth best in the nation last year. The 10-win season last year, 10th in passing offense last year with 306 yards a game, 14th in the country in total offense, 548 yards a game, and 17th in team passing efficiency with roughly 154 and completion percentage with roughly 66%. Yes, all these things are being equated to Seth Hennigan. All these things are being talked about as, yes, Seth did that. He can't do it without this offensive line. He can't do it. But when you look at Jonah Gamble specifically, Jonah's been an anchor on that offensive line, and it's really, really fun to see just how good this offensive line it really got last year, especially with Stokefield being an offensive line guy. And there's other coaches around the country who are very similar. Stokefield was an offensive line guy. Run game coordinator is always going to be kind of the same. But yeah, when you look at this offensive line, it's going to be that's a key point for this team in 2024, especially when you look at the schedule. You look at how it shakes out as the season goes. We know about the game down in Tallahassee. It's a big time football game. We understand that. The offensive line, the trenches is going to be a point of emphasis in that game, and not just that game, any game that Memphis plays against anyone. The trenches is honestly where the game is won and lost, and Memphis last year was really, really talented on both sides. Offensive and defensive line were strong suits for Memphis. But when you look at the College Football Network preseason second team All-American, you got Mario Anderson Jr., Chandler Martin, linebacker, Jalen Nichols, offensive tackle, Greg Rubin, safety, another player that just I can't wait to watch this kid, or young man really, play ball this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Courtney Marsh, which plays the flex, as well as third team for Javante Mackey, young man out of Arkansas State, who comes over to Memphis as linebacker. That linebacking crew, and we talked about it, but that linebacking crew for Jordan Hankins is going to be a blast to watch. We've seen what he's done with the linebackers since he's been here. Now he takes over as defensive coordinator, and it's going to be fun to watch. We talked about Seth Hennigan. He was named to the Walter Camp. He was one of 50 players named to the Walter Camp Award. As far as that award is concerned, there was 41 offensive players. That's 20 quarterbacks, 11 running backs, 5 wide receivers, and tight end, and 2 offensive linemen, along with 9 on the defensive side of the ball. Hennigan, as we've talked about, he led the Tigers to a 10-win season, did all that. 10 semifinalists will be announced in early November, and 3 finalists will be announced on November 26th. The Walter Camp Player of the Year recipient, which is voted on by the 133 NCAA football subdivision head coaches and sports information directors, will be announced on ESPN College Football Awards show on December 12th. So we talked about the success of the Tigers last season. We talked about how Memphis like I said, 10 wins. You can see the stat on the board, all that. But it's been a while since you've seen Memphis be voted number 1 in the preseason polls. It's been a while. They did that this year in the American. 2020 was the last time. But it's been a while since you've seen Memphis ranked, right? So I mean, when you think about it, last year, I mean, a lot of fans really thought that the Tigers would be ranked to start this year, but they're not. I mean, the coaches poll came out on Monday. Memphis did receive 44 votes, which is the most of any group of 5 team in the country. UTSA received 3. Tulane received 2. It's the only other 2 American schools to receive votes. Since we're talking Memphis, we'll talk American. And I mean, really, and Troy received 1 vote. Memphis plays them in week 2. But like I said, Memphis was picked to win the media poll, 23 of 30 votes. We talked to Frank Bonner last week about the Tigers, and Frank brought up a great point. You get 23 of the 30 votes. There's not too many people that didn't pick you. I mean, there's expectations that have to be met And I think when you look at Ryan Silver, he's made no bones about it. If you've listened to any press call or anything he's done, Silverfield's made zero bones about it. He understands the job that has to get done. He gets it. He understands it. Like I said, he's entering his 9th year with the team, 5th year as head coach. He's got some tenure now. It's not new to him anymore. And I think when you look at what he did last year, 10 wins, incredibly impressive. But we've talked about it. Um, the transfer portal for Ryan Silverfield has been incredibly impressive. We talked about it in the article about Mario Anderson Jr. as we saw him come over from South Carolina. But when you look at this team, I mean, one guy that everybody I think's forgotten about is Camonte Hamilton on the defensive side of the ball. Then you bring in Reggie Grimes, the article about him at the web or on the website right now. He played at Oklahoma. You bring him in, but then on the offensive side, like I said, you've got Mario Anderson Jr. Then you bring in Jalen Nichols. I'm sorry, played at South Carolina. You bring in the kicker from Ole Miss, Caden Costa. When you look at him last year, 14 of 17 in field goals. So impressive, right? Tanner Gillis comes in, is back again. Tristan Vandenberger's back as well. But you bring in Elijah Herring. We talked about that defense. We talked about those linebackers with new defensive coordinator Jordan Hankins, who was previously UT Martin's defensive coordinator from 2017 to 2019, and he was a linebacker coach at Memphis from 2021 till last year. So you look at it, you've already got Chandler Martin anchoring the middle. He was another transfer portal out of East Tennessee State. But then you go and you get Tennessee's number one tackler in Elijah Herring. Then you go get Jordan Greer from Indiana. You've got Greg Rubin there. Don't forget about Julian Barnett. He was a guy that transferred in and never left. That young man came from Michigan State seemingly 5 years ago. Oh, by the way, he's going to start. Taj Rael transferred out. So that, I mean, I think you could very easily see in Darius Coffey move up, as we would see in Darius Coffey named to an award watch list last week. But yeah, I mean, you look at this defense, and it starts with up front, like we talked about in the trenches. It starts up front. Camonte Hamilton, Patrick Lucas, Matt Hudson. These guys are going to be key. Kavonte Spears is another one I'm really excited to watch. Reggie Grimes is a guy out of Oklahoma that I can't wait to watch. This team's offensive line, defensive line, this team is good. They're very good. Can they stay healthy? That's a key. That's a factor that nobody can. I can't tell you if the team is going to stay healthy. I hope they are. If they do, they have the potential to be very good. Now, keep in mind, they won 10 games last year. They have the potential to be better than they were last year. So, and obviously, I'm talking 11 wins or more for Memphis. I mean, of course, we've gone on the schedule. Start off with North Alabama, then Troy comes to town for what is the 6th meeting. Then you make the road trip. September 14th, Florida State. Florida State's coming off a bye, so they will get an additional week to prepare. You play Florida State, then you go to Navy. That's two, and we're going to get into it more in article form coming up when we do a schedule breakdown. But that's 2 games right there. Florida State and Navy. Both teams come off a bye prior to playing Memphis. That's big. Then you get MTSU. Then you get your big bye. Now, you get a bye week before you play South Florida, but so does South Florida. When you look at Alec Golis and the Bulls down there, that's a team that you really got to keep an eye out for. And a lot of people are not giving them, personally, I feel like they should be giving them a lot more respect than they do. But then you got North Texas comes to town, a tricky Charlotte team, as Memphis learned last year. And we'll get more into that Friday or next week on the Tigers Den, next Wednesday. I'm not Tigers Den. On the Sports Buffet next Wednesday, we'll be talking Charlotte as we break them down. Then you go to UTSA in a very tricky road game. Last time you played UTSA, they came to Memphis and broke up your winning streak at home. They were not in the same conference at that time. But and you finish up with Rice, UAB, and then obviously you got the big game on Thanksgiving night. Primo time slot for Memphis football as they take on Tulane to close the season. So obviously Memphis football, everyone's excited, but don't forget, guys, there's going to be a fan fest coming up. It's a free fan fest to start the football season. It's going to be on Friday, August 16th. The event will run from 5:45 to 7:30 out at FedEx Park, Avon, Fogelman Field, and admission and parking will be free. Like I said, it will feature a movie on the video board, games and activities with Memphis student athletes from football, volleyball, men's soccer, and women's soccer. In addition, there will be inflatables, food and beverages, and more. Fall sports coaches will also address the crowd and preview their upcoming season. So a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun when you look at those teams I just mentioned, and we're going to get more into it as their season comes closer. But women's soccer begins their season very soon, coming up Thursday, August 15th against Alabama A&M, as we talked about earlier when we were talking women's soccer. Men's soccer kicks off on Thursday, August 22nd versus the three-time American Sun champion Lipscomb. Volleyball spikes back into action. Gets back into action August 30th against Mississippi Valley State in the Carney Yurdy Classic. And Memphis football, as we talked about, kicks off. It's there on the screen too. Kicks off August 31st against North Alabama. So I mean, when you look at sports season is here, it's here, and I don't think it's going anywhere. To be honest with you. Up next, let's talk stadium upgrades. If you've been paying attention to any of my personal pages, I am completely enamored with the renovation process. Every time I look at, I go to the website daily, at least a couple times a day. Every time I look, memories just flood my mind of wins, losses, both being there and not being there. To be honest with you. But I'm really excited. And there's an article out at 4star.live about it too. But it's not that I'm excited because of what it's going to look like. It's going to look great. Don't get me wrong. It's going to look incredible. I'm excited for what it's going to do for the university now that the university has ownership. What it's going to do for the city. What it's going to do for the Southern Heritage Classic. Memphis football is going to be, or Memphis really, is going to be the talk of college football because of this stadium. When I say the talk, I'm saying they're going to be a topic of discussion for the next 2 seasons. 2 years. Now, when you look at Memphis last year, they averaged 34,000 people a game. That's an uptick of roughly 26% in attendance. That's second. That's right behind the 2019 season, where Memphis averaged 38,000 people, roughly 38,000 people a game. They averaged roughly 34,000 last year. All it takes is to win games. But even last year, Memphis was winning games and people still wasn't coming. But to average 34,000 is a very good sign for the University of Memphis. But this year, because of these stadium renovations, you're going to take the capacity from 58,000 down to low 30s, roughly 32,000 people capacity. If you're Memphis, that's perfect. But can they fill it up? Because keep in mind, you're going to have to you have an allotment of tickets that's going to have to go to the visiting team as well. So that's going to drop. I mean, there's probably 2,000 tickets probably allotted to the visiting team, I would assume. I don't know the exact number. I can get it. I'm guessing 2,000 roughly. So you're looking at 30,000 people? Memphis should be able to put 30,000 in that stadium for every game. North Alabama included. You should put them in the seats. Now the Troy game, they're going to honor the 2003 Memphis team. So the Troy game, I can see there's going to be a lot of people there. But MTSU comes to town. That's going to be a fun football game. Speaking of 2003, Tommy West is on that team. Speaking of Tommy West, yeah, great article out at 4star.live on a conversation that we sat down and had with Tommy West about that 2003 team. So it kind of all comes for full circle. But yeah, you look at this Memphis football team. This is their year. This is their year to really make a statement, not just in the American Athletic Conference, but on a national level. Excuse me. Because when you do, I mean, you win 10 games again, you have a chance to be in the playoff. You win 11 games, and your only loss on the year is, say, Florida State. Man, you're in the playoff. Memphis finishes the season in football with one loss, and that loss is to Florida State. I don't care if it's by 35 points or 3. I don't care. If Memphis finishes the season with one loss, they're in the playoffs. No question. They would have beaten Tulane to close the year at Tulane. And for those of you that doesn't think Tulane's going to have a very good year, I think John Summerall is an incredible football coach. And we're going to get into each team as the season goes. We're just not getting this thing going. But I think John Summerall is an incredible coach. And I think by the time that game comes to fruition, by the time we get there, I think he's gonna have a lot more figured out than he will at the beginning of the year too. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. You are watching the Tigers Den right here on 4-Star Sports Media. We appreciate it. It's a little late. It's 10:48 at night, but the show's almost over, so it's all good. Up next, let's run back over here and check this trivia question out as we close the show. So trivia question is real simple, and I'll go ahead and hit the music. All right, folks. The question is on the screen now. Tigers trivia is real simple. How many 1,000-yard receivers does Memphis have in program history? If you listened to the show earlier and you were listening to me go over Rock Taylor and go over his stats, and I mentioned that he had 69 receptions for 1,083 yards for 4 touchdowns, and he ran, all of that. When I went over his stats, I purposely left out that's because of that. Rock Taylor became the 5th player in Memphis football history to have 1,000 yards receiving. So, Rock Taylor, who had an incredible year last year, but he became the 5th Memphis Tiger to have 1,000 yards receiving last year when he had 69 receptions for 1,083 yards and 4 touchdowns. And as I'll go back over it, he ranked 20th in the country in NCAA receiving yards, 23rd in receiving yards per game, and also became, like I said, just the 5th to go over 1,000 yards. And he was just one of 9 Memphis Tigers to start all 13 games on the 10-win squad. And he's another guy, talking about the transfer portal and how Silverfield has a way of bringing guys in. He has a way of keeping guys as well. Because when you look at guys like Rock Taylor, you look at Seth Hennigan, you look at coaches. Tim Cramsey's a hot name around the country right now because of the offense that he has going at Memphis. Obviously, Seth Hennigan has a lot to do with that. Those 3 guys specifically, could have, in a snap of a finger, been gone from Memphis. And that changes everything. That changes the entire trajectory of this season. The fact that those guys are back to finish business, and they've made no bones about it. They want to finish what they started last season for Memphis football. But when you look at those guys, Rock Taylor is your 5th Memphis Tiger in program history to have 1,000 yards receiving. So appreciate everybody watching and listening tonight over at these Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What's next? I mean, gonna be a lot. Really, gonna be a lot. You got, like I just talked about, you got soccer, men and women's cranking up. You got volleyball getting ready to spike the season off. You got Tiger football kicking off on the 31st. But then you still got activity going. You've got Memphis basketball continuing to sign more players. They're getting ready to start doing some more preseason stuff. Memphis women's basketball, like I said last week, announcing more stuff. We'll be back next Wednesday. Um, may not be at 10:30 at night like it was tonight, or 10 o'clock at night like it was tonight, but we will be back on next Wednesday for sure. And as far as this morning for the sports buffet, I apologize. Like I said, just had some schedule conflicts that we got straightened out. But we will be back on Friday morning as we talk Jacksonville State. We'll talk college football as well. I'm going to talk a lot more right on the sports buffet Friday morning. But for Wes Pruitt, I am Wes Pruitt. For all of us here at 4 Star Sports Media, we appreciate everybody watching and listening. And as always, folks, it's real simple. Just go Tigers.